Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Power series, the Power of a Purpose-Driven Business webinar. Today, Positive Luxury's co-founder and CEO, Diana Verde Nieto, will be in conversation with three amazing guests. Jim Stengel, President and CEO of the Stengel Company, a think tank and consultancy that helps brands discover and activate their purpose. Tessa Gerlach, co-founder of Elephant Gin, a premium gin brand made with unique botanicals and in support of the African elephant conservation. And John Hackett, the managing director of Arena Flowers, one of the leading online ethical florists in the UK. And together they will be discussing the balancing act of purpose and profit. So before we start, please note you can submit your questions anytime during the webinar through the Q&A box, and we will answer them at the end. Over to you, Diana.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much, Claudia, and thank you so much for putting all this together as always. So I am very privileged to have an international audience today. Tessa is in Berlin. Jim has got up incredibly early and is in San Diego. And John is actually around the corner in the UK. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time and your brain power for joining us today. We're talking about purpose. And, you know, in the last probably 2 years, everybody has talked about purpose as a new thing. And somebody like Jim has been talking about purpose probably for about 20 years. And, you know, kind of sometimes purpose, sustainability gets all kind of metal in between. And now everybody, every company has a purpose and talk about this. But really, what is purpose? And more importantly, what is having purpose when it's really authentic and really actually goes as it should be beyond profit? So I'd like to start with Tessa, because I love what you do. I mean, Elephant Gin is a fantastic initiative. And I was wondering if you can spend a few minutes talking about how you started, what is the essence of the business, and the purpose of your brand beyond profit. Over to you, Tessa.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me and for this generous compliment. So to answer your question, Elephant Gin is in business to support elephant conservation in Africa. And we founded it actually with the belief that we need to get actively involved to allow elephants in this beautiful, beautiful African landscape that we know today to exist for future generations. So, you know, we set out to support these initiatives, and we do that by selling a high quality gin product using African botanicals, as you already mentioned. And we donate 15% of bottle profits to various anti-poaching projects, education efforts. And we also just opened an education center in South Africa. So altogether, we have given over €500,000 now to these initiatives. And it's really what's driving our business.
Thank you very much, Tessa. I mean, John, you are in a slightly different business, but the first thing is, during lockdown, I think Arena Flowers have basically put smiles on people's faces, like, you know, in a way that it was incredibly unexpected. And I think you have lived your purpose, show up in a way that it was really inspiring. So tell us a little bit more about what drives the unbelievable amount of positive energy, not just from you, but also from your team. And also, you know, I also know from our conversations that you don't think when you were in lockdown, you didn't think about profit. You just did the right thing. So tell us a little bit more what the passion and the drive comes and how it all comes to life.
Got you. I'd just like to say thank you for having us. We're very honored to be here. It's a esteemed company with some great brands, and we're obviously very, very delighted to be a member of the Positive Luxury community. Lockdown for us was challenging. Like all businesses, it was challenging. We found, unlike some, that we were under enormous pressure because people wanted our service. People wanted to be involved with flowers. People wanted to use flowers to connect with one another. And so demand was enormous at a time when actually bringing a workforce together was quite challenging. And once we got over the challenges of getting a workforce safely to and from work and making sure they're adequately protected and making sure that we had provision for them to travel to and from work safely, we then thought about how those challenges might be affecting people in our community and in our audience, and actually beyond our audience. So we thought initially about just trying to, you know, lighten some dark corners by providing little pockets of joy by donating flowers to people who needed it most. And then that kind of created a spontaneity around gifting flowers to people who might be struggling. And so we donated, well over 8,000 bouquets to people in care homes and in the NHS and our frontline services. But we've also tried to reach out to people who might not work in any of those environments, but also are just struggling a little bit with feelings of isolation or feelings of loneliness, and try to encourage them to know that they're not alone, and to know that they're supported, and to know that just people are thinking of them. And flowers are, you know, incredibly powerful anyway in that sense. They allow people to know that others are thinking of them. As you said, we didn't do that for profit. You know, you don't give away things for free and expect to make money from it. But I think we've always believed that, well, I certainly have always believed, in the business, yeah, absolutely echoes that by doing good things will follow. So that's very much our mantra.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for doing the work that you have done. My team also is very happy and very grateful for have received your flowers, so thank you. Jim, I mean, you and I know each other for a hell of a long time. Let's not talk about time or age for now. Let's keep this upbeat and optimistic. But you have been talking about purpose for a very long time, and you had an exceptional career at P&G. And you fought that purpose battle at a corporate level. And then, you know, you have established your very successful consultancy. So tell us a little bit more about what you see in the corporate environment when companies talk about purpose, and how could you advise businesses to go from having a purpose to actually being purpose driven? So to walk the talk, not something that you just have a nice, you know, thing in your wall and this is it, but actually, how do you live it every day? Like, you know, doing fantastic, Jane, that have, you know, kind of better homes for elephants, and, you know, you have flowers to the front line of the NHS. So how do you do it?
Diana, good to see you again. Thank you for hosting this lovely webinar. I feel a connection to everyone here. I had a gin and tonic last night, although I wish it was elephant gin, but we don't have it in San Diego yet. Tessa's working on that. And John, my wife is out early this morning spraying her roses to get rid of aphids, and she's doing it in a sustainable way, using warm water and dish soap. Anyway, to your more serious question, Diana, one, I guess, ray of light or silver lining, if you will, to this awful economic, health, and social crisis we're going through is there are really interesting conversations going on in companies right now. So people have often said the last 4 months has accelerated us 8 or 10 years in many ways in e-commerce and changing the way we work, more agility. But to me, the most positive thing I'm seeing inside companies right now is a tremendous feeling of helping each other and helping people, being of service, being useful, being compassionate. These words are happening all across companies, you know, within teams and what they can do for their customers. So everything John just talked about is going on in a very scaled way. So I think this is enormously positive. It's accelerating the journey on purpose, because as we all know, purpose is nothing more than trying to make a really positive impact in people's lives through what you produce or sell, and to continue to innovate and stretch on that. And that is really happening right now in a very accelerated way. So I'm very positive about the future of purpose in business. And I think this awful crisis we're going through is accelerating that. I think a big gap we have now is measurement. We can talk about that later, but I'll leave it at that. I think this is one positive thing that is going on in these times of sadness.
Thank you very much for this. And yeah, I mean, we feel the same. There is a lot of conversations, and we have been super busy as well in terms of companies that are finally waking up that they cannot live without sustainability. It's something that they need to move from conversation to action. So I'm looking forward to your thoughts on measurements. I mean, this is a question for all of you. And what does beyond purpose means? Because I think the conversations of purpose is kind of exhausted. Now we need more. And we need to move from purpose to positive impact, like this idea of measuring. And what does a positive impact look like? So that's the two questions. What does beyond purpose means? And what is the next, and what is next for your business in terms of this idea of positive impact? I'd like to start with John, actually.
And sorry, I'm on a phone, so it's a bit cumbersome. Apologies. Yeah, I mean, I think for us, Diana, it's quite difficult to think beyond purpose because our business is entirely purpose driven, right? You know, we were set up as a flower business to deliver flowers, and those things, we have to make profit, and we have to be sustainable, and we have to be profitable to be sustainable. So that's a kind of a first base. But beyond that, we've made it our absolute ambition, personal and business wide, to improve the lives of the communities we touch, no matter where they are in the world. Every part of our business has that written into its DNA. And whether we're sourcing flowers from Kenya, in the same place that Tess does work, we only buy from fair trade farms, we only buy fair trade products, we only buy from KFC, Kenyan Flower Council, gold accredited members, and we make sure that that the money that's earned through those schemes is fairly distributed through gender and through tribe, and irrespective of any other notion. It just has to be evenly distributed. And that happens not just in Africa nor South America, but also closer to home. We pay real living wage to everybody in our business, and all of our shareholders, stakeholders, receive minimum real living wage, not just the living wage. And we donate £1 from every bouquet to Women's Aid, and we also plant a tree for every single order we receive, either in Haiti, Madagascar, or Mozambique. And these are all activities that are not just about, you know, greenwashing or making some sort of, I think we use the words optical allyship. We're not into optical allyship at all. We're into deeds, not words, making sure that what we say we do, and sometimes we don't even talk about it. We just get on with it and do it. And I think that speaks to authenticity, and it speaks to the idea of really wanting to make a difference. And if that is part of your business, if that's part of your integral value, then you can't deviate from that. You either believe in that and you're true to it, or you're not. And if you are, you're authentic. And I, you know, echoing what's been said previously, I genuinely believe that customers are becoming an audience that is much more aware of greenwashing, much more aware of optical allyship, much more aware of inauthentic behavior. It gets sniffed out. People work out those businesses that are truly committed and those which are not. So for us, it's actually quite simple. We will remain purpose driven, and we will remain committed to doing what we believe to be the right thing at all times. And when you have that as your core set of values, you can't deviate from it. It's impossible to deviate from it, because you know what's right and what's not right. So for us, it's quite simply, we carry on doing what we're doing, and we do the very best we can. But we also have to acknowledge that we can't fix everything. So we fix what we can, and we fix it to the best of our ability. And that which is beyond our control, because we're not a government or a small state, we just have to acknowledge that that's not for us to fix. But we absolutely live by a view that says, although we're a tiny business compared to Jim's P&G, we are a business that can make a difference. And if every business of our size and scale acted the way we do and believed the way we do, then the world will be a much better place. So we want to lead our industry. Even though we're a small voice, even though we're a small business, we have a large voice, and we wish to continue shouting as loud as we possibly can for change.
Oh, I really love that. I mean, Tess, what's your take? Because you guys are similar sized business. So, I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo what has been said just now by John. I mean, he touched on pretty much everything. But, I think, even the purpose-driven businesses, they have one main purpose. And so our main purpose is the elephant conservation. But, beyond purpose is really looking at every aspect of your supply chain, looking at every tasks in your daily lives to see if there is room for improvement. So like when we try or when we look at at every process of the way, we look for the most sustainable way in producing our product, whether it's, reducing plastic, engaging in recycling initiatives. We have tried to use waste as a resource. We work with like-minded people, so we try and, search for better partners, look at suppliers that we want to work with. When we develop marketing materials, we see if there's an opportunity to maybe work with disabled workshops or, people in Kenya, for example, where we have 3 Maasai ladies who do some beautiful, beautiful beading for us. And yes, it is way more complicated than hiring someone locally, but it doesn't have the same value and doesn't have the same meaning to us or to them. So really looking at your everyday processes. And as John also said, be transparent, talk about it, be authentic. We don't have to plaster, saving elephants everywhere and on what we do, but we just, raise awareness and we, tell our stories and hopefully motivate others to make their first step into a purpose-driven business. And maybe also realize, it's not that hard. You can just start at, in one corner of your business and then see if you can tackle that and try and find a way of improvement.
Thank you very much, Tess. I mean, Jim, the question for you is slightly different. So can you tell us about the role of regenerative business models? So, kind of this idea of beyond purpose and how can we move to living purpose and positive impact? No pressure.
Yeah, no, I think the thoughts that were just shared by John and Tessa, I mean, that is purpose. That purpose is activation, it's behavior, it's values, it's consistency. So I think that was just a very nice seminar on how to live purpose, which is the only way to do it. To me, to answer your question, I think that purpose, when you discover it, you activate it, you build it into your systems, you measure it, you engage people in it, it is a better way to do business. Yes, it maybe makes us feel better, but it works. You grow businesses, you develop services and products, and you attract employees that will help you grow in the right ways. So to me, this is why it's sweeping the world, because it's a better way of doing business. It's more effective. It's more sustainable. So it really works. And I think there are still some skeptics. And I think we will have skeptics, and that's good for us because the questions they ask are things that we need to think about. But I think to me, the key is your employees. To me, Gallup still tells us that a high percentage of our employees around the world are disengaged. That's simply unacceptable. And the one piece of advice I'd have for everyone in this audience, this community, is talk to your people about how they could make a better difference in their work. If I talk to John's people and Tessa's people, I think they'd have lots of ideas, and these are thriving companies. But the ideas are always in your organization. They care more than anyone. They want to live a purposeful life, and they have a lot of ideas. And to have half of our employees in the corporate world globally not fully engaged is an enormous waste of human potential.
Thank you. That's actually really profound. I'm very right as well. So the best audience is your internal audience, I guess. So if you would give one piece of advice, actually, Jim, I'd like to stay with you. If you would like to give a piece of advice to our audience in terms of how to activate purpose and how to actually activate their internal audiences, to their employees, to live a most purposeful life, what would that advice be?
I think you have to, your leadership has to be with you, right? So the movements can start anywhere, but if a company's leadership does not believe this, internalize it in their language and their behavior, builds it into their KPIs or their measurement, recruits about it, recruits for it, talks about it, it won't catch. So leaders have to be with you. They have to see the case for it, the case for change. They have to believe it will be a better world for their business and their employees and society. So to me, it's about leadership, it's about employee engagement, and it's about making a breakthrough in how we link purpose activation to business results. And someone like John believes that, Tessa believes that. I think we have to develop a different way of measuring our businesses that shows that purpose activation is linked to your top and bottom line. And my team is working that. We need some innovation in that space, but I think that will help us make a breakthrough in making purpose as a way of business more sustained.
Thank you. Tess, what about you? How, like, you know, kind of, what would be your last thought? What would be that piece of advice?
I think maybe start with saying that, you know, you don't have to change the world. You know, a purpose doesn't mean you have to change the entire world. Like, start small. I feel like there's still a misconception that, you know, it is more work or more complicated to be a purpose-driven business. You know, but we don't have to do everything at the same time. You know, with Elephant Gin, I can't save every or support every endangered species. You know, for now we focus on elephants and we try and do, you know, the rest of the sustainable production efforts that we can. But yeah, I think as Jim said, you know, if you find something that you're passionate about, you know, and you really need to feel this. I mean, truly the best days of my jobs are the days that I transfer the donations over the foundations and know, you know, what will happen with it. And there's the sheer value of being able to support these initiatives is worth so much more than profit or whatever else. So I think everyone just needs to make sure they find something that they're so passionate about that they really get the sense of motivation, you know, to drive the business, to motivate the whole team, because really the whole team will benefit from it. You know, it's making a difference together is worth way more than doing it yourself. And it just gives your team a sense of meaning and just draws on their support.
Thank you. John, how does it work for Arena Flowers? We can't hear you.
And again, I'm so sorry. I think I'd echo a little bit of both what Jim and Tess have said, in the sense that actually your best ideas will come from your people, and your people are your greatest advocates, and your people are your greatest inspiration often. And actually then you don't have to change the world all at once. It takes a lot of many steps, and many small actions can lead to great change. And actually, we found that a good example, I guess, would be that we've encouraged our workforce to be engaged, and we've encouraged our workforce to be advocates, and we've encouraged our workforce to bring intellect to every conversation they possibly can. And what we found is that actually process change doesn't change that much. It's actually the big decisions around the suppliers you use and the process that you might follow later down the path. But actually the physical processes day to day don't cost you any more, right? So if you can explain to shareholders that there aren't really that many costs, it's just a different way of doing business, and there actually are some friction points along the way, but if there's an end goal that we can all sign up to, and that within that you retain your best talent, and within that you recruit the best brains, and within that you're able to advocate in a different way to potential customers, then there's value in that, right? Difficult to measure, and you know, Jim's probably got a tougher job than he thinks there, I guess, or certainly than he knows. We have had one simple result, which I think, I guess, shines a light on some of those similar challenges. One, which is really simple. Our growers were harvesting products, and then the stuff that they cut off was going into landfill or going into waste recycling, costing them money, taking up space, inefficient. We've now turned that, an idea from one of our team was to take that green waste and to turn it into a substrate. And that substrate is now used in all our sustainable packaging. So we don't waste a single ounce of the green material that was once created, that would always be waste. Historically, for many, many years, when you cut the bottom of a stem, it goes in the bin, right? So there's the energy that's gone into it, the human resource that's gone into that, the land, the water that is taken to make that. Why not repurpose it? I would never have thought of that, right? That's not my idea, but someone within our team did. And that's because you've got a team of engaged advocates who are bringing intelligence and creative thought to the things we do. And I think that does speak back to what Jim was saying and what Tess was saying. It doesn't have to be great big ideas all the time. It just has to be lots of constant thought and intelligence applied to simple things.
Thank you very much. And that's totally true. I mean, certainly my team are much more creative sometimes, coming up with solutions that I don't even think about. But you know, you have to give the people in the front line the space to be their better selves. So absolutely agree with you. So let's go to some questions. I need to get close because I quite can't see. So how to engage the conversation internally with our leaders? Being working in a company that seems to have some belief, but not really living these beliefs. Anyone who would like to take this question?
I mean,
Well,
I could
go ahead,
Jim.
John. Yeah, you start, John, please. And
Okay,
tell us how we can get that flower arrangement behind you.
Oh,
It's
that's
beautiful.
Very simple. You just spend, I think, 69 quid with us. We deliver it anywhere. San Diego's a bit of a stretch, but we can find a way, I'm sure. No, I mean, my view would be, again, it's about trying to find an idea that catches. And once you've got an idea that catches, then you can demonstrate the value within that. And I think, as with all things, you know, pick your first battle or discussion carefully, because going for the biggest prize or the most obvious prize might be the thing that motivates more people, but actually finding a result that works and can demonstrate proof of concept in all things, in my experience, is probably the most valuable way to go. But Jim can speak to that far more clearly than I.
No, John, that was great. The only thought I would have, if the company has strong set of values and we feel like we're not acting on them, I would talk to the CEO or an influential leader at the top of the company. And the conversation would be very simple. It would be, I care very much about this company. I think we have a very strong set of values, probably a rich history, but I don't think we're walking the talk. I don't think we're living them every day. And some of my colleagues and I want to make a difference in that. How can you not take that meeting, and how can you not listen? So I think it's about human engagement with your leadership, about not acting on the values of the company consistently. And I think that conversation always leads to good places. And if it doesn't, you're not in the right company and you should leave.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much for the answers, and thank you so much for the question. And actually, this is a really great question to actually follow that. It's from Bob, and says, this is for you, Jim. Does he distinguish between a brand's purpose and a brand's positioning? And if so, how?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we get very caught up and tangled up in our language. So I think it's better to be as simple as we possibly can. I think purpose is why you're in business, the impact you're trying to make, the difference you're seeking to make in the lives of the people you serve. And that's evergreen, right? You can always be doing better in that. In terms of how you're positioned, I think that's how your brand, which hopefully is living your purpose, is positioned versus the competitive set. Mm-hmm. You know, I think you still have to be different in some ways, right? You have to look for your points of difference, is language that's often used. But a great brand has meaningfulness, has uniqueness, and has relevance. And so that's, to me, you know, you have to look at how you're positioned in the market you're competing in so you can have a winning business. But I think we sometimes get trapped in too many pieces of language. To me, you know, it's what's in your culture is most important. The purpose of your brand is most important. And how you seek to be different is most important. I almost always boil it down to that.
Thank you very much. And there's a question, I don't know who would like to take the answer. from a consumer perspective, it can be hard to tell the difference between brands that talk about the purpose versus brands that live their purpose. What signs should we look out for to know which brands to trust?
I think I can take that maybe. So I think the brands that talk about it and that have more to show than they actually talk about. So, you know, when we introduce our brand, Elephant Gin, we talk about the gin. You know, it's about the gin, and the gin needs to sell itself, and it needs to be good, and it is award-winning, and so on and so forth. And when people find out it does actually more than that, you know, they dig deeper, and you need to have the information that then they, you know, then that they seek. So, you know, when we say we give 15% to projects, we need to list the projects. You know, we need to identify, you know, or people need to be able to identify where does this specific money go, and what have you done with it, and what is your, you know, your plans. So brands that are super transparent, and you can see that, you know, through their website, you can see that on their social media. You know, if you dig deeper and you want to find answers and you ask these questions, they should have answers to all of the questions to understand, you know, are they just using this as a marketing tool, or do they actually believe in what, you know, what they say and what they live by?
Thank you so much, Tessa. And again, I don't know who would like to answer this question. So do you think that there is possible, or there is a possible future where all brands have to be purpose-driven as a prerequisite? That would be amazing. Who would like to take this?
I'll start. I think that, I think John said this a little while ago. I think expectations are really changing with people, with consumers. And I think they are, and this is, again, I think this whole crisis we're going through is accelerating that. The expectations are raising. You know, look at the Black Lives Matter movement, which some, New York Times thinks it's the biggest movement in the history of the United States. There are different conversations happening within companies because people are expecting us to do the right thing. And I think this is reaching a peak that we have not reached before. So I think the expectations of people, of companies, because governments aren't meeting the expectations of companies are rising. So in a sense, we better rise with them, or you won't have a successful business. And by the way, it's also the right thing to do. I turn it to Tessa and John to comment on that. It's a good question.
I think that's an excellent question. And I absolutely share the view that businesses are now expected to do much more than they have ever been expected to do, rightly, correctly. And I think you draw a really interesting parallel, Jim, that the idea of governments failing to do that, right? Across the planet, we have governments that are struggling, I think, to keep pace with the change in society, and businesses are filling the void. Good businesses are filling the void. Black Lives Matter is actually obviously a powerful moment that's becoming has become a powerful movement, and I don't think it changes. I think it needs that level of sustained outcry and pressure for society to change, and businesses must have a part of that. They must, right? And if we don't demand it of ourselves as leaders, then our workforce surely will. Again, I turn back to deeds, not words. What's the best way to describe it? In Instagram, right? Everybody put on a black screen in June and or July, and that was it. The next day they're posting cupcakes and pretty dresses and all that sort of stuff. And I think customers see through that. And if they don't see through it immediately, I think with time they reflect upon that and feel that was inauthentic. We actually struggle, right? We struggle with the idea of how do we cut through as an ethical business, as a sustainable business, as a business that cares about the environment and is purpose driven. We can have all the independent accreditation of those values and be held in high regard by businesses that know us, but actually in a congested marketplace, it's actually, I find it really difficult to cut through and to espouse the difference between our business and others who may lay claim to similar values but don't actually live them. And I think that is a real challenge, right? But my hope and my belief is that over time, authenticity will win through. But it doesn't matter, because irrespective whether it does, irrespective whether I become the #1 flower brand in the world ever, isn't my goal.
You are muted, John.
Sorry, I think I had a call that was blocking me. My ambition is to make sure that we stay purpose-driven and that we make a positive difference to every life that we touch.
Thank you. I'm going to try to summarize some of these questions because they are kind of the same questions popping up in various different places. This is one. This question is for Jim, so please bear with me. One is about what do you mean about the measurement gap, and how would you measure purpose and communicate it? And then a similar question that also came through is, how do you measure purpose? And then, and then how do you communicate it? Actually, it's the same question. And how can a business really transform into a purpose-driven business? So Jim, lots of questions for you.
Well, I think it's the area of measurement is still a very wide open field. I think what's happening across business, across the world, people are discovering or rediscovering their purpose. They are starting to bring it to life in activation. They're starting to live it, but we don't have it in our KPIs, our key performance indicators, with our companies, with our senior management, with our individual employees. So, step one is we can start having discussions in performance reviews about how that individual feels they are activating and living our purpose. That single question in however you do performance discussions will be a strong signal that this is important and this is the way we are doing business. I suspect Tessa and John, when they talk to their people about performance, talk about their purpose. So that's how you start. Is the work of the organization shifting to be more about activating the purpose? Everyone can do that. They can do that today, tomorrow. What the deeper challenge is can we find a way in this world of artificial intelligence and big data to link purpose activation directly to business results and show the causality? Can we come up with a net promoter score for purpose? That's what we need to do. We need the financial community to see that purpose means better business. So that's what my team is working on. We have some interesting thoughts. We have a good hypothesis. We have a software platform that we think can do it. We have lots of companies that are piloting. So I'm positive we'll find the answer to this. But to me, that is the biggest gap. CFOs have to see that purpose is the way to better performance. I'm convinced it is, but we need better linkages and better measurement of that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for taking the time and explaining this. And we don't have much time. So I don't know who would like to take this question. Is from Ode and said, that is very insightful, very interesting. Thank you. Because I have the impression sometimes some companies are not comfortable having a voice because they have the impression that they have to be 100% perfect and save the world. I would love the idea that it's genuine mindset and that starting small is great, as well as employee level. So I don't know who would like to comment on this.
I think Tess and I have both said similar things on this, actually. That actually you don't have to change the world, right? You don't have that doesn't have to be your ambition. But that finding something which will make a difference within your organization and without your organization is a good enough start. I mean, there's many routes towards. There's many people who've shot for perfection and not failed, right? But I think if your ambition is good and your intent is true, then that is the definition of starting with a purpose. So I'd be advocating strongly that anyone in that kind of situation just pick something that they can make a difference with and does it to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Do you have time to add to this? I think, to add to this, I think you know, companies should also, individuals as companies, they should also be able to ask for help, you know, if they don't know where to go from here. You know, nobody's perfect. We're all trying to do our part and try to get better at it. But there are, you know, people out there that have done bigger and better things. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, they'll guide you in finding your way. And this community that we're all in, you know, all of us here, is such a strong community, and everyone is willing to help and support one another. And I feel totally like it is not about competition. It's just about how we all can make an impact on this world. And so, you know, I strongly would, you know, advise an individual or a company, you know, reach out and talk to others that have done, you know, the small things or the bigger things before, and then just go from there.
Well, what a fantastic way to finish this webinar today, with collaboration and reaching out to people in a time in which we have been all so isolated. So please do. So I just want to say again, thank you so much, Tessa and John, for taking time today, and a special thank you to Jim for waking up at God knows what time to actually, you know, taking part of this without coffee, because you haven't actually drunk it. So thank you again very much for taking the time, and it's my pleasure to hand it over to Claudia, please.
Yes. Hi. Thank you very much, Tessa, Jim, and John, for your time today. Next Thursday at 2 p.m., we will have our 20th webinar in the Power Series. And actually, it will be the last webinar of the season. And we will be discussing the power of entrepreneurship. So please subscribe to our newsletter today to receive your special invitation. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you all. And we will see you next week. Stay safe. Bye.